In this video, we're going to show you how to install the CV axle on your Volvo XC90 in the rear of the vehicle. Using a 19mm socket, we want to get it loosened and remove our lug nuts. Grab that wheel, remove it, and set it aside. Now on the back side here we have our ABS wire, and we want to go ahead and remove the 8mm bolt holding this in place. So go ahead and use your 8mm socket. I'm going to use my 1/4" drive ratchet. Go ahead and remove that bolt. Now we did spray this down with some rust penetrant, let that soak in. Now ideally, you want to go ahead and wiggle this out like so. Pop that out, set that aside. On the forward lower control arm here, we want to get loosen and remove this bolt using our 15mm socket. We're using a swivel to get in there a little bit easier. We're going to remove our rear bolt here, 15mm bolt head, 18mm on the nut on the other side. On our lower control arm here that attaches to the knuckle, we're going to go ahead and loosen and remove this 15mm bolt. We're going to use our swivel head on this with an extension. Now the bolt itself kind of binds up a little bit inside the control arm to the knuckle. It's because our rear coil spring is pushing down on the control arm, causing this to bind up. Go ahead and take your jack and jack up the rear control arm here. Relieve some of that pressure, and you can pull on that bolt as you're jacking this up. There it is. Now we're going to slowly lower down our jack. Now we want to go ahead and unbolt our parking brake cable. It comes from the back of the brakes and comes around here. Right here there's a clamp that is securing this. I'm going to spray this down with some rust penetrant. Let that soak in a little bit. And loosen and remove that bolt. Now the parking brake is also clipped on to the rear lateral link here. It just has a plastic clip on it. Pop that off here and just pop it off the top. There it is. Now we put our jack back underneath here. You want to go ahead and compress up this control arm. And what we're doing is we're basically supporting this because the coil spring itself is naturally going to want to push this control arm down, and our CV axle is down at an angle. So if we work this up a little bit, it'll help us give us a better angle on the axle itself. And we want to go ahead and remove our 15mm bolt here that goes through to the upper control arm. This is right behind the brake backing plate on the top. Use our 15mm socket. I'm going to use an extension to get me beyond that backing plate with a ratchet. Now it's not necessary to remove it. If you want to, you can. I'm just going to bring this back so that washer has plenty of room to move around. We're going to disconnect the lower portion of our sway bar end link. We're going to use an 18mm socket here. use our 18 mil thin wall wrench on the inside to hold the shaft here. Pivot that up and out of the way. I'm going to lower my jack. I'm going to use our pry bar. I'm going to go between the knuckle and the control arm here on the bottom and pry this up. I'm going to push on this knuckle up and away and work the axle out. Now I reposition my jack from the control arm to the knuckle itself. I'm going to go ahead and raise this up. This is basically going to assist me in getting this up out of the way so I can continue working on this axle a little bit easier. Now at this point here, with our knuckle raised up and out of the way, we can go ahead and grab that axle and we're going to give it a few good tugs. Here it is. I'm going to pull that right out. Now before we install our axle, I want to pay attention to the seal that is on the inside here. There's a rubber seal that goes around, and if you notice there's all kinds of moisture and fluid leaking out of here, you do want to go ahead and replace that seal that is in there. Ours is pretty clean at this point here, so we're not going to go ahead and replace it. But when installing the axle, you want to make sure that you don't nick or damage the rubber seal here. So be careful when installing the axle. And we're going to feed our axle up. And we need to reach up inside here and guide this into that seal. There we go. It starts to go in there. Now what we want to do is push it in as far as it's going to go. Give it a couple wiggles back and forth, left and right, and try and push it in as far as it'll go. Now we're going to move to the outer portion of the axle and we're going to strike it with the rubber mallet to seat that. Now you're going to feel that axle seat. Now I want to go ahead and flex this up. There we go, get that lined up. I'm going to go ahead and start to lower this here. Lower our jack. And we're going to reposition our jack. Now, depending on your setup where you have the vehicle positioned, you may or may not need your jack underneath the control arm. Sometimes you can just kind of wiggle the knuckle around and push this up and in. There we go. By using our rubber mallet, we can position this. Basically, at this point, we're going to manipulate the suspension, jack this, hammer this, work it back and forth so we can get the bolt holes to line up. I find sometimes you can use a screwdriver once you get this close. You can sometimes get a screwdriver in there to align those holes. There we go. Now I did clean up our bolt in our wire wheel machine and applied some anti-seize compound to those threads. And this is where we continue to use our mallet, get things to line up. Now our goal here is to run that bolt in. We're not going to seat it and we're not going to tighten it. We just want to get it close to base. Let's bring our sway bar end length down. Let's go ahead and throw the nut on there. Bring our upper link arm down. And we did put some anti-seize compound on the bolt and the threads. Pop that in. Let's get that nut started on the other side. I'm going to follow the parking brake cable around and I'm going to install the clip and the bolt in the back next. There it is. Now we would clean our bolt and put some anti-seize compound on the threads there. Now as far as this goes here, we can go ahead and just tighten that down now. Go ahead and snug that down. Now we installed a ratcheting strap here, and what we want to do is we want to go ahead and pull the suspension forward so we can get these to line up. I'm going to check this periodically. Has to come up just a little bit more. Okay, try and get your bolt in there. All right, and once you get in a couple threads, you're gonna pop your ratchet on there. I'm going to run this in. Once again, I'm not going to tighten it yet. Okay. Our next step is we want to go ahead and tighten all of our bolts. Now, before you do that, we need to make sure that the suspension is in what we call a neutral ride height. That means if we had the wheel on the vehicle and it was on the ground, that suspension would be compressed and it will be in its neutral ride height. If you tighten this down with the suspension drooped all the way down, it'll tighten here and cause these bushings to twist and bind, and it's gonna give you a stiff ride, and it's gonna tear these bushings and wreck them prematurely. So, when you jack this up, in our case here, the back of the vehicle is just off of our lift. Our suspension is compressed to its neutral ride height. I'm gonna run around to the bolts. I'm going to snug these down by hand first. I'm going to do this to all of the bolts. And then we'll torque them, and then we can lower it back down. Now that we have all of our hardware snugged down, I'm going to go ahead and torque mine down to 79 foot-pounds. Continue to do this for the rest of the bolts. Torque down the sway bar end length to 59 foot-pounds. We're now going to release our strap. And then we can go ahead and lower our jack. All right, good, remove that. Just going to run our upper bolt in. Let's go ahead and torque this down to 64 foot-pounds. Now grab our sensor here. Again, insert that in. Get our bolt started. I'm going to go ahead and run that bolt in as far as I can by hand. Then we can go ahead and snug that down. Once that bottoms out, just give it a little bit more. Just want to make that lightly snug. Don't over tighten it because you can crack the plastic. Go ahead and grab your wheel. Go ahead and get that lined up. Let's go ahead and get one of these lug studs started. Let's go ahead and get the rest of these started a few threads. Then we'll come on back and snug them down. Go ahead and gently snug these down. All right, let's now go ahead and torque them down. Let's now go ahead and torque down the lug nuts to 103 foot-pounds. When doing this here, it's best to do it in a crisscross or star pattern.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.